Hello and welcome to your fourth geometry class. The topic for this week continues to be a review of basic algebra concepts. I'm Mr. Marquez, your online facilitator, and let's get started with today's class. Okay, so the objective for today is graphing functions by using a table of values. Now, what is a function? A function can be simply defined, if you want to talk about it in layman's terms, as a cause and effect, an input or an output. Now, these kind of functions, which are used to graph, to study various things in nature, work the same way. They actually have an input, which is your x coordinate, and you're going to get an output, which is your y, and we're going to construct a graph from that, okay? So what we're seeing is basically input and output, no more, no less. So let's get started. Now, I have the problem y equals 2x plus 1, and I want to construct a graph using a table of values, which is this. So I already pre-wrote these numbers. One thing that you want to understand is that the x numbers, or the input values that you use, you select them. Now, I chose these so I can explain my example, but you select them. They can be whichever numbers you want. They can be all positive, all negative. You can choose as many or as little as you want. I always like choosing 2 as my least amount of numbers, 4 or 5 as my maximum, so that way I can graph my functions properly. Okay, so let me go ahead and write this here. Okay, so we can understand what we're going to be doing. Now, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to take each one of these numbers and I'm going to plug them into my function, specifically where the x is. And every time I get an x, or every time I input an x, I'm going to get a y, and that's going to give me an ordered pair, and I can construct my graph. So, you're going to say y equals 2, right? Instead of writing 2x plus 1, I'm going to say 2 times negative 1 plus 1. And let me write that better because it doesn't look like, can't distinguish it. There you go. Now, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, and negative 2 plus 1 equals negative 1, okay? So again, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, and negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1, so that means that y equals negative 1, and that's going to be my first ordered pair. I'm going to do the same thing here. Y equals, instead of writing 2x, 2 times 0. So you're going to say 2 times 0 plus 1. 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 1 equals 1. So there's my second ordered pair. Again, I chose, or I selected these numbers at random. You can do the same when you start doing your practice problems. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So y equals 2 times 1 plus 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 plus 1 equals 3. And that would be 1 and 3, and that would be my other ordered pair. And I'm going to do the same thing with 2, and y equals 2 times 2 plus 1. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 equals 5. So that'd be 2 and 5. When x equals 2, y equals 5. So that means that now I have my table of values. That's why it's called a table of values. And now I have all the things I need to simply graph. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my coordinate plane and go ahead and plot the points. So my first point says x is negative 1, y is negative 1. Now remember, this is my x-axis and this is my y-axis. So negative 1 is going to be here more or less, and negative 1 in x would be here, and negative 1 in y would be down here. So this is where I would plot my first point. And then I have 0 and positive 1. So 0 is here. Positive 1 is here, 0 and positive 1. And then positive 1 and 3. So that would be 1. And then 2, 3, 1, and 3. And my last ordered pair is 2 and 5. And that would be about here. And that's what my graph should look like. So then you can go ahead if you want, and you can kind of connect the dots a little bit, and you get a linear graph, okay? And that's pretty simple. That's how you do it. That's what you're going to do once you've seen this video. So I'm going to go ahead and step out of camera, make sure everything is working properly, that there are no glitches, everything seems to be working smoothly. So I'm actually going to go ahead and erase this. If you have any trouble, you can pause or rewind and go back to the video. Okay, now we're going to do a second one. Now I like this one particularly because it has a fraction. A lot of people hate fractions because they find them so confusing. So let's say I give you the graph or the function y equals 7 over 2x minus 3, okay? Now, I want to graph this function. So the steps are the same. They're not going to change. I'm going to find inputs. I'm going to put them in the table of values. I'm going to graph my functions. But when I have fractions, you can use technically any numbers, but if you want numbers that don't give you decimals or don't give you fractions and they're easier to graph, my suggestion is this. If my denominator is 2, I'm going to think of numbers that are divisible by 2. Numbers that I can divide by 2 very easily. Now the good thing about numbers that are, when the denominator is 2, like it is here, and you want to choose numbers, well, you're going to choose numbers that divide by 2, which in this case would be even numbers. So I actually wrote them down here, 0, 2, 4, and 6. I'm actually going to write it on this side of the board, and my table of values, and I'm going to say 0, 2, 4, and 6. And I'm going to work with these numbers, and I'm going to get a y value at the end. Okay, so here I'm just going to write y equals 7 over 2x minus 3, and the answer that I get from there is going to be my y coordinate. So I'm actually going to say y equals 7 over 2, but instead of putting x, now I'm going to write 0 because that's what I chose. Again, you can use any numbers you want. I chose these because they're even numbers, and I know that whenever I have to do my division, they're going to divide by 2 very easily. So what you're going to do is order of operations. So 0 multiplied by any number is 0. So 0 times 7 over 2 is 0. And you would say 0 minus 3, which equals negative 3. And I know that in my y input, my first number is going to be negative 3. So I'm going to do the same thing with 2, right? I'm actually going to plug in the 2. So I'm actually going to go ahead and say y equals 7 over 2 times 2 minus 3. Now, this is very simple. It looks complicated, but it's not. What you're going to do is you're going to say 2 times 7 is 14, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So that's actually going to be 7 minus 3, which equals 4. So my other ordered pair is 4. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 4. And I'm going to say y equals 7 over 2 times 4 minus 3. Okay? 7 over 2 times 4 minus 3. 4 times 7 is 28, and 28 divided by 2 is 14. And then I subtract 14 minus 3, which equals 11. So this would be 11. And now I'm going to do the same thing for my last input value, which is 6. And y equals 7 over 2 times 6 minus 3, okay? And 7 times 6 is 42, and 42 divided by 2 is 21, and 21 minus 3 equals 18, so that would be my other ordered pair. And now I'm just going to go ahead and graph that, okay? I'm going to graph this function. I'm going to find the table of my coordinate here. Well, pardon my handwriting, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to graph my coordinate plane. And my first ordered pair says it's 0 and negative 3. So this is 0 because it's my origin, and I go down 3 spaces. 1, 2, and 3. And that would be my first ordered pair. My second ordered pair is positive 2 and 4. So this is 2. And I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So guys, you don't have to do that. You can count by 2s if you want to graph them, or you know, if you have space, then just go ahead and do 20 little lines. So 2 and 4, so this is 1 and 2 and 4 would be about here more or less. And then the other ordered pair that I have is actually 4 and 11. So 3, 4, and this would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that would be about here more or less. So more or less that would be 4 and 11. And then the last one is actually 6 and 18. So 6 and 18 would be about here. And this would be more or less what my graph would be. So that's more or less how you graph them. It's very simple. You just plug in the numbers, construct the graph, and that's it for this class. What you're going to do is once you've done looking at this video, reviewing the examples, make sure you've understood everything, you're actually going to go to your math sharpener to week 3, day 1. And you're going to see 2 exercises there that you're going to do as practice. So guys, stay safe, and I hope you're enjoying your summer online experience. I'm Mr. Marquez, and I'll see you soon. Bye.